This is the last session of the LearnEast. My name is Mr. Plord, or no, my name is not Mr. Plord. It's because I'm speaking with Geoff, a former student of mine from elementary school. My name is Luke Plord. I am a team member of the Digital Learning Lead team here at ASD-W, and this is session number D4, and it's online partnerships for sustainable education, taking climate action in the Gaia Project. Geoff MacDonald is going to be our presenter. He is the executive director, am I correct, Geoff? Of the project itself. And I mentioned before, and a former student. You done good, bud. You done good. So mics should be turned off. However, since we're a small group, we could keep our mics on. Geoff and I were talking earlier, and he said he'd like to have an interactive as possible. Video, it's up to you if you want to leave it up or not. And questions, because we are a small group, we can just leave the mic open and go from there. So at the end, I'll have a link there for you for your door prizes, and we'll just let Geoff go to it. Thanks, Geoff.
All right. Yeah, thanks so much. Yes, as Mr. Plerd mentioned, I think I met him in the 4th grade in French class with D-2. Was it D-2, right?
Yeah.
The little puppet.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of a funny blast from the past, but I'm happy to be here today to talk about the Gaia Project, to talk about making community partnerships with organizations like ours, and how we can sort of make this work in the new school year. And we've been working really hard since April, when everything kind of changed, to sort of envision what it's going to look like this school year, so we can have a conversation about that. And yeah, I definitely would love it if people could turn on their microphones and interject and ask questions, and I might be asking some questions. It'll be great in a small group to be able to talk with someone and not just blab, blab, blab. Okay, so I'm going to throw up my screen here. Just let me know once we're good to go and you see everything. All right, how's that?
Okay, good to go, yeah.
All right, so I'll just go over some of the ideas we have to talk about today. I did have sort of an activity, and I was fortunate last week to give a presentation like this with the Department of Education during the Learning Series. And so there's a couple things that will probably work today and some things we might skip. But I'm going to do a little bit of an icebreaker activity, kind of talk about what makes a good environmental club or program at a school. We'll talk about the Gaia Project and what we do and our origins. We're going to look at online delivery of the programs that we have to offer this year. We'll share some stories and resources that you can use to take climate action with your students. And then we can have a little bit of a question period and some discussion around that. So this little icebreaker I have, you can do with yourself, or you can hold your hand up to the camera, whatever you choose to do. It's called the 4-Finger Showdown, and it's sort of like the old game, Never Have I Ever, that kids play. So you're going to hold up 4 fingers, and when I read out an action, you will have to remove a finger if you've not completed that action. And we'll take our time with it, and everyone can kind of see where you're at after we go through all the actions and how many fingers you have left up. And you can kind of think about, you know, this as a sort of set of guidelines for an impactful environmental education program at a school. Here we go. So let's start with fold a finger if your school does not have an environmental-based club. Could be a green team or an eco team. And fold a finger if you have never taught about climate change with your students. Starting off with some softballs here, right down the middle. Fold a finger if your school does not celebrate Earth Day. Fold a finger if you have never brought in an environmental educator to work with your students. Could be from the Gaia Project, could be from Nature MB, Ducks Unlimited, Falls Brook Center. Fold a finger if you have never attended an environmentally focused professional learning. There's not a lot out there, but there are some great ones. Hold a finger if you have never facilitated an inquiry-based, sustainability-focused project with students. Getting really specific here. Fold a finger if your school does not have a garden for students to learn in. I think we got one more. Fold a finger if your school does not celebrate environmental projects on the school announcements. It's kind of a weird one, but it's something that I learned from a program in Ontario. And it's something that we don't really do in our program when we go to a school is try to get on the announcements or, leave a poster behind or something. But it's a good way to sort of spread the work that you do in a classroom to the rest of the school environment. So think about sort of where you fit into that game and maybe things at your school or in your classroom you could change a little bit. Anyways, just a way to kind of get kicked off. And I'll tell a little bit about myself here. So I am the interim executive director, formerly the director of education with the Gaia Project. I really enjoy working with curriculum and lesson plans and stuff like that. That was sort of what I really enjoyed doing in my education program at UNB. And I was lucky to work with a great mentor there and do some work around inquiry-based science, specifically with elementary school teachers. I found that a lot of elementary school teachers I encountered were really struggling to teach science with an inquiry-based approach, or maybe they just kind of were avoiding teaching science sometimes because they had sort of the autonomy to do so. So I wanted to ask why and figure out how I could support teachers to bring in sort of more experiential learning activities and experiments in their classroom. I'm also a Toronto Raptors fan, so I'm really enjoying that they just swept their series. I'm a bass player. I play in a local band called Wicked Vices, and I am a new owner of a Shih Tzu dog, 6 months old. Name's Dolly. She's real sweet. She's not here right now, or she'd be tearing around. So, yeah, she's pretty cute. So let's talk about the Gaia Project. So we focus a lot on experiential learning. We focus primarily on education. A lot of groups like ours sort of focus on the environment first, and they do a lot of work, like field work in the environment. We just are strictly focused in the K-12 environment, working in classrooms, and part of that means that we have to work really closely with Department of Education and the different school districts, all 7 school districts around the province, to find out what the priorities are, what's the buzz terms, what the global competencies, sustainable development goals, what sort of language are we supposed to be using with teachers and with students. That's really important to our organization. But of course, everything we do revolves around sustainable education and environmental awareness and climate change. You can see some of our impact from last year. We do get around to the entire province in Francophone and the Anglophone sectors. We hit over 10,000 students before closure last year, before the COVID pandemic school closures. We reached 160 teachers with professional learning like this, mostly obviously in person type of professional learning. But we had a pretty good year and we were really hitting our stride, and unfortunately things change and we were forced to sort of rethink our programs, rethink the way that we communicate with teachers and not become sort of a burden of extra work in a really difficult time. So we've really tried to incentivize and reform our programs to be a way to make life easier for teachers. And we'll find out if we did that real soon. Here's our team. And our executive director is on maternity leave, Lizzie, and she actually just had a baby with Matt, her husband, last night. So we're really excited. We've been celebrating today about that. She's been an amazing part of the organization. Here's her filming a video last year. We did a video project in Forest Hill School in St. John to capture some of the work that we do. And she's been great for bringing in money to our organization and keeping the doors and the lights on. This is Jimmy, and you may have seen Jimmy at your school before. He's been working for our organization for nearly 10 years. He, in my opinion, is probably the best informal educator in the province. He's got it down to a science, and when he goes into a classroom, he really just knows how to take control. This is me working with some UMB pre-service teachers with professional learning. That's typically something that I will lead in our programs, and I have a lot of fun doing it, especially working with the pre-service teachers. They're definitely always looking for new tricks and tips. This is Jane, and Jane has recently moved into a communications role with our team, so she's really focusing on sharing the stories of working in schools and getting involved with the media, social media. She's been really great for us. Brittany works in the Anglophone sector, and she is an expert with waste management and waste diversion, specifically with like vermi composting kits. She's really passionate about that. So we got a lot of worms around the office, and she's really interested in bringing worms into your classroom if that's something you're into. Catherine works in the Francophone sector. She's based in Moncton, and she's been a superstar this last year for us. She traveled all around the northern regions of the province as well and hit a lot of schools on the way. She is very creative, and she's helping a lot with the development side of our organization. I think we found over the pandemic and sort of being forced to reshape our programs that some people really stepped up as stars with some of the curriculum development side of things, and she's been really great for that. And this is Ainsley. She's our special events coordinator. She does anything and everything, really. She is sort of a jack of all trades and always helps out and pitches in on different angles, whether it's fundraising or delivering a program. But yeah, these are our team members. These are the faces that you might have seen around your schools, and this is sort of the reason that the Gaia Project works is the talent that we have.
Geoff, can I just ask a question there for a second?
Absolutely.
Of your team, I know you have an education degree, and you mentioned that Jimmy was the most informal educator. Are the other team, any of the other team members educators or have their degree in education?
We just hired a new Francophone delivery officer in the Fredericton region, and she actually worked a few years at Ecole St. Anne, so she has an education degree, but the rest of our team does not. Jimmy has a background in environmental studies.
Okay.
But before the Gaia Project, he spent a number of years working at Fundy Park, I believe it was,
okay,
doing sort of education and teaching outdoors and everything like that. So he doesn't have the official, experience of working in the classroom and teaching that way. It's a sort of a different world, this informal education. It requires a different types of skills, I guess, sometimes.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But it also, you kind of avoid sometimes like the discipline side of being a teacher and classroom management and things like that. So yeah, we have a bit of a mix, but it's always something I'm looking for when we're finding a new staff is if they have that experience with the Bachelor of Education.
Good.
Awesome. So online delivery in schools, this is the new thing. This is the shift that we've made. We realized that our organization started from boots on the ground, knocking on school doors, and working face to face with students and teachers. But the reality is, we knew pretty early on in May that was not going to be the case this year. Where we do travel all around the province to different schools, there's a huge risk that we could be the vector that's transferring this virus from the north to the west or to the south part of the province, and we're not going to take that risk. We're going to see what happens throughout the year and in the province as we move into the winter term, but for now we're trying to make everything available online through these learning packages, videos. It's all sort of bundled in together. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. This is a traditional look at our programs. Actually, I might break for a second here and just ask, I'm not sure how many participants we have right now, but if someone would like to introduce themselves and just say hi, I think it might be a good time just to do that and talk about where you teach.
I'll go ahead. My name is Barb, and I'm currently teaching at Hubbard Avenue Elementary School in Ormocto. My second year there. midshipman before that, and then I was overseas for 25 years. Just came back years ago. Yeah, so I'm really excited to. I know nothing about so much coming back after having been away for so long, but this the Gaia project looks really interesting. Something that I feel passionate about, the environment and the climate.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Hi, I don't have my camera on because my kids are running around. But I'm Crystal, and I teach at Minto Elementary Middle School, grade 5. Last year I was immersion. This year I'm intensive French, so a bit of a change up, but same age group. And I have looked at the Gaia program. I was one of the teachers who looked into it in the spring.
Oh, good. Thanks, Crystal.
So I'm Luke Plord. I introduced myself earlier. I'm a digital learning lead, and I actually took on some of this project when I taught at Leo Hayes High early on in the infancy, I guess, of the program. So it's kind of neat to see where it's evolved and that it's continued to grow the way it has. So good to hear the good things going on, Geoff.
Perfect.
All right, so I'll go, I guess. So my name is Francis Morneau. I've taught at ASDS, and before that up north in Edmundston, and now I'm at Rothsay Netherwood School for this year. And I'm really excited about learning about Gaia because I think it's relevant to our time and place, and we need to take care of our planet. So I think the kid would really get into this journey and come up with great ideas. So I can't wait to see what you guys have to offer.
That's great. Thank you so much. All right, so that's good. It gives me sort of a good idea of what sort of resources to focus on. And as you can see, we are available from K to 12 really. If we get a kindergarten or a grade 1 teacher to call us, we're not going to say no. We'll find a way to adapt for them and provide them some of our offerings. So this is our traditional look. We have the trash tracker program. We have the energy engineers program, energy detectives, and sustainability in action. So we sort of selected these different topics at different age levels that we find are more appropriate. One thing they say with climate change is that you shouldn't bring up tragedies before grade 4, and that's something that we sort of abide to. So we don't go in an elementary school and start talking about sea level rise and some of the devastating effects that we see around the world. We sort of wait to give them a little bit of information and knowledge and build on that and skill set, and then really start to address some of the issues when they have the autonomy to actually do something about it. So what's changed though over the last number of months is our traditional programs have expanded, our content has expanded, and our website is a way more valuable tool now because that's where we want to do all our recruiting. It's where we want to gather our data from what schools we're working in and how many students we're reaching. And we want things to be a lot more accessible than they have been in the past. So we've been working on our website, and we're hoping that's going to be ready to launch the start of September. I think we're sort of anticipating that September is going to be a slow month for us as people start to get their feet under them and understand and navigate the new world of education. And I think in moving into October and November, we'll start to become more of an asset to teachers, and they'll understand how a community group like ours can really help them. What we want to do is provide time. This the one thing that teachers don't have a lot of is time, and we can give you time by lesson planning for you and putting things together in videos and sort of making your job easy that way. So that's sort of the whole initiative here. And this is the new look of what our offerings will be like on our website. We've sort of broken things down into learning packages that are with clickable links and everything. Your worksheets are in there, your videos, it's all sort of in one online package. Then we have project-based programs. That's more of our old style or traditional style of actually doing some hands-on learning and inquiry-based learning. And we have the trash tracker program, the energy detectives, and the sustainability in action all fit into that category. Then kind of new to us is these DIY offerings where we have some downloads on our website that you can sort of do what you want with them. One that I think is going to be really popular this year and in the next number of years is our 50 classroom climate actions poster. It's sort of like a scratch as you go poster where you can choose a different activity. It could be really low engagement, or it could be really like a school-wide high engagement activity, and students can tangibly see what they're doing by scratching it off on in their classroom. And we printed off a bunch of those. Unfortunately, COVID's really slowed down the shipping process, but we're hoping to get those in the next couple of weeks so we can send them around the province. Really excited about that one. We have an education series video online. It sort of follows the story in Sackville, New Brunswick. That region has really been impacted already by some of the effects of climate change, and they are working really hard to do something about it, including the schools. So we were able to sort of film the process of students and teachers, administrators, and groups like ours kind of doing what they can to teach students to learn about climate change and to take action. And then, of course, we do the professional learning, and that could be, I think that's our most flexible offering. Sometimes we'll get a lunch hour, sometimes we'll get a morning, sometimes we'll get a full day. You really don't know what you're going to get with these types of opportunities with teachers or schools. So we try to be really open about how we deliver those. And it could be something like this, right? So it's something we're always open to talking to teachers about how to teach climate change or how to talk about climate change with students. We just try to be really adaptive and meet the school community where they're at on that level. And this is a really exciting new one. A new program from last year. We looked around the country at things that were working and things that we should bring to New Brunswick. And this is one that really sort of spoke to our organization. So Eco Schools Canada is all about certifying schools. And, you know, you probably heard of LEED schools, and sometimes they have green schools in different provinces and things. Eco Schools is a way to log online about these great actions that you do, whether it's a school garden or a greenhouse. Maybe you bring in an organization like ours, or you're just making your own climate change unit or something like that. You can log those actions, and you can get you can celebrate with your students and your school community about the great work you do. I find when we work in these kinds of schools, there's usually like a little corner of the school that's like the environmental teachers and the environmental students, and they're sort of just like in their little nook doing their work, but it doesn't really always reach the entire school community. And something like this we identify as a tool to sort of improve that social consciousness about this work, and also encourage other schools that maybe aren't into this kind of stuff to be pressured a little bit to be an eco school. We want it to get to a point where a school is not comfortable not being an eco school, so that they'll look into it and see what they can do. So, and the big thing too for us is trying to network like-minded educators. We have these eco champion teachers all across the province doing these projects, but they don't always know what's going on, in the next city. And so it's cool when we can connect these people to talk about their projects and sort of ask questions about funding and things like that. And that if that's something we can take away from today as well, where there's another teacher in the session that's doing something that you're interested in, that's always a great thing for us. So the Trash Tracker program, I'm going to show a resource that we've developed for this, so we can kind of have a look at what it's going to look like here. Let me just open that up. Here we go. Okay, so this is our grade 3 to 5 project, and typically what we would have done in the past is loaded up our car with buckets and bins and all the equipment and scales and things like that to go into a school, work with the students as sort of like the special guest, and sort through the garbage that they would have saved for like the last 2 days in the school. And students get really hands-on. They put on gloves and they sort through the organic materials and the paper and the plastics and everything. And they get really kind of silly about it, but they really are engaged and they're paying attention to what's in the garbage. And it leads to sort of a really good discussion about why certain things aren't recycled at schools, or in a full province why things aren't recycled a certain way. And you can get to that systems level of impact of trying to figure out, well, should we write a letter to someone here? Like, how can we change this? Why can't we recycle our milk cartons, for example, in this specific community? And it's really been successful for us. We've got national recognition through the media on this program. The unfortunate thing now is that we can't go into school and lead the program. So all we can really do is package all the equipment up into a box and build a resource like this that's like a sort of a guide for what to do day to day, and encourage teachers through virtual meetings and phone calls to undergo this hands-on project, because it's a lot of fun. There's connections to all disciplines in this program, and the students have an impact in their community. That's the biggest thing. So we tried to make it as easy as possible. All these videos and everything are clickable. We worked really hard this summer to film guide videos and to put together presentations and PowerPoints. It's all kind of here at the click of a button, and we know that we'll learn a lot through the fall and probably make some revisions and changes as we go. But as of right now, we have funding to deliver 24 of these projects in French and English schools in New Brunswick, and I don't think we're going to have too hard of a time getting signups for that. But we're just really hoping that it's going to vibe well with teachers and they'll be interested in the program. So that is an example of Trash Tracker. You got a project rubric here with the global competencies. It's all sort of here. So if that's something you're interested in coming into this fall, or maybe you want to do it in the winter, you maybe want to wait a little while before you try something like this out, yeah, you can email me after this presentation and we can try to get you to the top of that list to run these programs. Okay, jump back in. Start. Any questions about that program specifically?
I think that would be such a great program to run if you were doing a school garden. You could teach the kids about composting and have representatives, running a compost program in the school.
That's a great point. And the way that we've sort of built this investigation is, we start with a question, you get information, you collect data, you reflect, and then you take an action. And so the 5th day of the program is all about, what if we get $500 from the Gaia Project, what are we going to do? And I think a lot of schools are going to say, we want to have a compost program in our school. And that might mean that, they want to put in some vermite composting bins, or it might mean that they want to put in a real outdoor compost system. And we're really happy to support the schools that want to try that. So yeah, that's a great point. And a lot of times when we traditionally would run the program, that would always come up with the organic materials is, we'd sort through all the waste, and then the students would ask, well, what are you going to do with all this stuff? Like, we don't have a compost program here. And so we'd have to throw it back in the garbage, and it's kind of disheartening to have to do that. But when it's like a 1-day investigation, that's really all you can do. But hopefully this project will kind of spark a further action as it's really up to the teacher, I think, at that point to take it to that next level. Here's just some pictures here of some past schools that have done the Trash Tracker program. Energy Engineers is a bit different. So one of our funders is MP Power, and they've been working with us for 3 years on a specific agreement where they're trying to really increase students' understanding about electricity and how energy is generated, how it's used in our homes and our schools. And the big thing they're really concerned about is how we can conserve energy, because we have sort of a lot of energy challenges in our province over the next 30 to 60 years that there's not really any answers for right now. And one thing MP Power knows they have to invest in is smarter consumers, and we're all consumers of electricity and energy. But I don't think, personally, when I was in school, I learned too much about that topic. So it really does connect a lot to science, but There's also a lot of connections to social studies and how people and communities make decisions around these things. And this one's more of just like an online learning package that's just really, we're not sending equipment to schools for this one. It's going to be more just like make it your own. Here's the PDF with all the worksheets and the videos in it, and use it however you want. If you want to do it one day, if you want to do it for a week, it's sort of in your hands at that point. Here's a look at some of the activities in the PDF. Energy Detectives is a middle school program. This one is sort of the next step, like a scaffolding step above energy engineers. So now we want students to work on the skills around measuring energy use. And we have these energy monitors at our office. We have like hundreds of these energy monitors that we're looking to send to schools so students can plug them in their classroom and find out the difference between plugging in a laptop from plugging in a projector or you name it, like an old computer or whatever you have in your school, the fridge in the kitchen, and they can leave them plugged in overnight. Another alternative we're looking at is these students can actually take these things home from school. And I know that's always kind of a risk, but at this point, we're not really too worried about, equipment not showing up back to our office. We just want students to be able to conduct these investigations so they can take them home and find out how much electricity some of the appliances use in their homes. And we sort of have all the math worked out on our worksheets so they can find out how much money they can save in their home or save in their school. And we've had schools in the past work on these programs and come back at the end of the school year with tremendous amounts of energy savings based on just making some pretty simple changes in their schools and applying things like energy miser or vending misers and things like that. So that's sort of the gist of this program. And here's some examples in the past of working in different middle schools. There's Jimmy. This is really the big one, sustainability in action. We're sort of always trying to build up to this big project that we conduct in high schools. And it's about a 4 to 5 week project where students can have a little more choice in what they want to study. The way we've had to break it down and maybe simplify it a little bit with our new deliverable of not being in the school is we broke it down to 5 topics. So food, water, waste, energy, and transportation. Students are able to choose one of those topics. We have sort of like an information video on each topic. We have a student guide that they can use to get their information. And the whole point is for them to sort of come up with a driving question to change something around their school. We've worked with a lot of schools in the past that have, they've studied solar energy and what if we had solar panels in our school? And we actually have the equipment to get sort of data collected to look at that. Sometimes they look at their cafeteria and they wonder why they have single-use plastics, and they try to find an alternative, and they do a waste audit to measure how much plastic they're throwing to the landfill. So it's really a way to empower students and give them an opportunity to conduct research at the school. It does take a lot of commitment from the teacher, and we've had teachers in the past that have tried this, and now this is all they do. They do it on their own. We don't even go. They just they've committed to the project-based learning approach, and it's a little bit scary because some students can get lost, and some students, the ones we do find that typically will get a little bit lost in these projects are the ones that typically excel when you're doing tests and textbook stuff. But the more disengaged students are usually the ones that kind of perk up for this project because they have that control over what they're doing. And yeah, it's definitely really impactful. And here's a couple of, here's a bit of a breakdown here because it is a little more intensive. So we have a really intensive teacher guide that goes along with it. There's certain things that we want the teachers to decide and control on their own, but there are some things where we're looking to collect certain data from these projects and follow these stories. So we do want to have some sort of involvement, whether it's through virtual check-ins to the classroom or just phone calls with the teacher. It's definitely something that our program delivery officers will be involved with. And here's a couple of example schools that we worked with in the past. We've done a lot of work at FHS, Bathurst High, Hampton High School. I was in Hampton High School last year, and their students had delivered this really incredible panel on climate change, and they were able to bring in some experts and politicians and scientists and city planners in the community and things, and they asked some really hard questions to these people, and they were really showing just how much they think about this stuff. And I remember one of the questions one of the students asked was, human species has got ourselves into this situation from making really poor choices, and do you think that we deserve to get out of this? And it just sent like a bone-chilling feeling around the room, and the scientists on the stage were just rattled. They didn't know what to say, but these are the things that students are thinking about, and they want to know what can be done. And so a lot of these schools are sort of the ones that are leading the path and asking those questions and trying to get those initiatives underway. And we're happy to help any way we can. Here's some of the equipment we send. A lot of it's like for measuring temperature changes, and energy monitors. Some of it seems a bit complicated, but we have all these video guides to show exactly how to use them, how to plug them into your computer, and so you can get the data right up on your computer. And we find in general students usually don't have too much trouble operating this equipment. I have a couple of resources I wanted to share specifically that we use in these kinds of programs, focused around climate change specifically. So when we meet with the Department of Environment, they give us, certain messages that they have from the Climate Change Secretariat. And the most recent one, we had a presentation where they talked about how New Brunswick is going to experience more water, it's going to be wetter, we're going to experience more heat, and we're going to experience more storms. So those are the three areas that they sort of describe to us. And I think that's probably the three areas as a teacher you'd want to focus on with your students when you look at climate change mitigation, adaptation strategies, or just collecting data in general. So I'm going to show you a few things that we use. If everyone can see this, can someone just give me confirmation that they're looking at a simulator thing here?
Chart, yeah.
Got it? Okay. So this one's really neat, and it focuses on global temperature change. So there's been a lot of reports, the IPCC report recently about, the dangers of our globe increasing by 1.5 degrees Celsius and the changes that's going to have in different countries around the world, and we're all going to feel different impacts based on that. This is a really cool resource that they put together to look at different scenarios of making changes. So one example here is transportation. Students might wonder, well, what if we just go full electric? And we, and they can kind of see how the graph changes here with different energy use and then the overall temperature change projection on the globe. And they can kind of see like how many different variables are really important here when you're talking about climate change mitigation and these policy changes. And they can look at renewable energies. Well, what if we had renewable energies and we go really focused on wind and solar, get rid of coal, so they can see what kind of things it's going to really take for our countries and our decision makers to what kind of changes are going to be good for us, what kind of changes are going to be bad for us, and how are we going to try to reduce this the greenhouse gas effect and global warming. So this is kind of a neat tool for them to learn about. Climate change is a very complex issue. I think we try to generalize it, and when we think about it, how it's going to affect different places in the world. The reality is it's going to affect different countries and different provinces in different ways, based on air currents and sea level rise and things like that. But another example here, here we go. So this is more focused on sea level and flooding. So you can kind of make the connection to the warmer temperatures and the sea level rise. And so, you can look here if the water level goes up to about 1.5 meters, which they have projected could happen by the year 2100. You can see specifically here in Fredericton, it's not looking very good in the surrounding area. Another area I talked about earlier is Sackville, New Brunswick, and you can see why they are engaged in climate change, because most of their region will be underwater. And the connection between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, that highway, they're going to have to do some serious infrastructure changes there, because if this gets really bad, Nova Scotia will actually become an island, which is crazy to think about. But and we don't want to, again, scare students too much with this stuff, but we do want them to recognize that if these changes happen in their lifetimes, this is something that we want them to influence their decisions and getting involved with, voting and, energy use and sustainability practices they can do in their lifestyle. So related to the lifestyle, we have this resource called the Lazy Person's Guide to Saving the World. It's from the UN and connects to the Sustainable Development Goals. And it just goes through some basic changes from, like, they call it a sofa superstar, like really low engagement ideas that you can change your day-to-day on, to household heroes. So things that are a little more, involve a little more energy, taking shorter showers. That one's even difficult for me. Minimal packages, or buying products with not much packaging. So consumer type decisions. And then spreading it out to look at things you can do in your neighborhood, and then things you can do at work. So it's sort of like a really good engagement tool to show with students. I think students, they know enough about the background of climate change and that it's an issue. They don't have any doubt about it being an issue. They just really want to know what to do. And when you can find a good tool to show them something real quick at school or in their lifestyle to make them feel a little better each night, I think that's kind of what we try to do anyways. All right, so I think what I'm going to do now is just skip to the end here. If there's any questions or stories, let's try to do that. So does anyone have any stories related to this work with students in the past that they want to share?
Geoff, does it list anywhere on the website the schools that are participating or have participated, in case we wanted to maybe get in touch with individuals at those schools?
That map I showed earlier of all the schools we've been to this year, that was a student project. We had a student intern working on that, and unfortunately, she wasn't able to complete it because of things that happened with closures and COVID and working from home and everything. But with our new website, we're hoping that we'll have sort of better representation of the schools that we've been in. I mean, if you, it's something that any of our staff could do. If you said, hey, I'm really interested in doing a project linked to greenhouse, we would know a number of schools that have done that and been through the process of that we could get you in touch with. But I don't have like a specific thing to point you on our website that shows you like where we've been and what work we've done. It's something that we're trying to get better at. I know you mentioned you were from the school in Ormocto.
Yeah, Hubbard.
And I'm pretty sure that sounds like it rings a bell. I'm pretty sure we've been there before. Is that the middle school or the elementary school?
It's elementary.
Elementary.
I'll check with the teachers. I haven't, again, this is only my second year, going into my second year, so I'll make a point of bringing it up. We do have a compost program, so maybe the teacher in charge of that, she would know.
Yeah, sounds good. And I'll take a look at our metrics sheet and see if I can find Hubbard on there.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or stories? I'll give one real quick one. So I mentioned the climate panel in Hampton High School, and I've seen a number of these happen. I don't know if anyone has had one at their own school, but I attended another one at Sir James Dunn Hill Academy, in St. Andrews, the high school there, and it was the same thing. It was really great to see the experts show up and give their opinions and share some really insightful knowledge with the students. But one thing that really broke my heart there was, they had these scientists and they had a local representative, and the one person that didn't show up for that was someone from the Department of Education that had committed to going. And so it just made me a little bit concerned that, in my opinion, the person that should be there the most is someone linked to education and hearing these stories and a part of it and answering questions. I don't know. That was just something that bothered me personally, but it's something I hope that an organization like ours can help influence. And I know we have a lot of good partners at ECD that do help us a lot, but it's just a slow social change in a lot of ways.
Mm. And so with the trash tracker, is the idea that it's not necessarily a class, but can a whole class do it? Especially this year where we have our bubbles and
we've sort of designed it. Yeah, the way we designed it this year is for the 15 student max, because that's what we're hearing is the class sizes. So ideally, you'll have one large tarp and one large sorting bin for your class, and we'll have to restrict the amount of garbage you can go through with your class. So at that point, it's kind of up to you if you want to go through one bag or you want to go through two. And it's just a learning process for the students to see how things get sorted in different ways. And we have resources around the waste commissions and some of the rules around how they do things in St. John compared to how they do things in Fredericton or how they do things in New Maryland even. So we sort of have packaged it up for just one group of 15 to do, and we have sanitizing stuff and everything included with it. Definitely don't know what it's going to be like as far as, if one group at a school finishes with the kit and then another teacher next door is like, I'd like to use that. Not sure yet what the policy and regulation is going to be around that, like sharing and things like that. But the goal right now is just for one classroom to conduct the investigation.
Because with the prime class, the maximum is actually 22 students, not 15.
Oh, I thought it was 15. Is that some news?
It's 15 K to 2.
Gotcha.
And then I think it's 3 to 5, 22. French immersion, it could be 15. But it's kind of, depends.
Okay, well, that might change things a little bit. Thanks for that information.
Who knows, it could change again, but right now that's what it is, 22 for the regular, instead of prime classes, and then I think French immersion is 15.
Gotcha. How's things been looking at your school as far as space is concerned when you look at classes of that size? Do you think they're going to have to change music classes into regular classrooms and things like that, or what?
I don't think so. There's going to be sharing a gym, but not necessarily regular classroom, just 2 gym classes. There's a group meeting tomorrow to look at that.
Right.
I think we're okay. We're getting rid of the breakfast room and using that as a classroom.
You could do some of the trash stuff in your classroom too, though. It doesn't need to necessarily be the whole building. You could do it as a class and have them go home and do it with their families, so they become the teacher talking to their family about that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. last year we actually didn't have funding for this program, so when a teacher in Florenceville asked us to come down, I wasn't able to do the full program with them, but I was able to go and show do professional learning angle with them to show the teachers and the eco team there, the students, how to conduct the waste audit, and then they did it all on their own. So this kind of a project, I never found like we really need to be there to make it work. It's just a matter of having the tools to do it. And I think we've sort of put them together in the right package where it's kind of easier to do now.
I guess that's one of the advantages of doing it earlier than winter is that we could use, and even in winter we could too, the outdoor space.
Yeah. As long as you don't get plastic bags blown away.
Good point. Make a note of that.
Yeah.
A question, because you brought up and I was wondering this when I was supply teaching, and it's not just at New Maryland, but that's where I noticed it, and they did start recycling the milk cartons. Why are milk cartons not recycled at schools?
The way that it's set up is, we have our provincial waste policies, but every region, there's like different regional, I can't remember how many exactly, about 8 or 9 different regions for solid waste and sorting and everything like that. So they all have different policies in those tiny little regions, and because they're based on commission. So sometimes they have a good, for example, with plastic, sometimes they have somewhere they can sell their plastic, whether it's to somewhere in China or whatever it is, and the other commissions might not have that opportunity, so they don't recycle plastic the same way. They take it to the landfill. And with milk cartons, it's probably the same. One commission might be able to use them somewhere, and another one might not have that connection, or it's just somewhere they don't have funding for. But milk cartons is a good one because we're connecting with the Carton Council of Canada on this project, and they're really interested to see how many milk cartons are going to our landfills here in New Brunswick. So some of the data that's collected in these projects we're actually going to use for some real, there's going to be some real eyes on them to make some decisions. And milk cartons is a huge one, because we have schools that contact us and they have closets full of milk cartons. They don't know what to do with them, and they want us to come with a trailer or something and take them all away. But that's not always a great solution either. So. Yeah, make sure to get my contact information too if a question arises over the next couple of days, or when it gets closer to recruitment time, I can put you on our email list, and we typically will send out a big email list in September to say our website's ready to go. Come on and fill out a form. A lot of our programs are limited spaces, but if you can get on there pretty early, and even if you don't want to do it until November or December, it's good to get on early and get prioritized for those projects.
Geoff, thanks very much for sharing what you've shared with us today. It's enlightening and encouraging to hear someone so knowledgeable about this type of program, and exciting to hear what's going on in other schools as well. It's a value, obviously, to not only our students but to our society. And I appreciate the work that you're doing, and thank you from the participants and from LearnEast here. Folks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post the ballots for the door prizes in a second here, and before you go, and I believe you probably have to copy and paste the link into the browser to make it work. So with that, Geoff, I say thanks very much, and take care. It's good connecting with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cool.